Hey friend, in this first episode, you'll get to know me a little bit better. We'll be talking about my journey to raising our own livestock for food and the purpose behind this podcast and how it came into existence. Let's get to it. Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. I'm Millie Bradshaw, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. Here we'll talk about raising goats, chickens, and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. My earliest recollection of livestock is the two Holstein cows on the family ranch, Spot and Speckle. I was really young, so I don't remember a lot about it, but I do know I loved being in the barn in the morning when they were milked. At that time, my grandma was still churning butter and doing all the dairy things, but it wasn't many more years before the cows were gone and the milk came from the store. We lived on the family ranch where my dad worked for my uncle raising beef cattle until I was 8 years old. My dad then took a cattle manager job with a large ranch nearby. We moved there, and most of my summers were spent horseback, usually moving cows, and sometimes just exploring or riding in 4-H. We got a bunch of chickens, and I was responsible for their care. Hauling water to the coop in winter was especially challenging. I thought eggs were magical, but I wouldn't say I did an exceptional job of taking care of the chickens. In fact, I didn't do very good at all. The problem was, we had too many. It was so overwhelming, especially for a kid. When I say large ranch, there were 5,000 to 6,000 cows on the place, so there was plenty of opportunity to help. As I grew up calving, branding, vaccinating, bottle feeding, weaning, and moving cows from pasture to pasture, I developed a deep appreciation for the ranch lifestyle and beef cattle production systems. Interestingly, even though we were surrounded by cows, we did not eat home-raised beef unless it came from my uncle. We actually bought most of our meat from the grocery store. I went on to college and got my bachelor's degree in animal science. While there, I had the opportunity to work for several laboratories: metabolism, nutrition, DNA, and meat science, and that's how I found my true passion in animal nutrition. I went on to complete my master's degree in ruminant nutrition and beef production systems. After college, I worked in extension and research, but my heart was always drawn back to ranching. My husband went back to work on the ranch where I grew up, and we settled in town on a couple of acres. I was able to stay home and raise our 3 kids, and that's when I really started to question the food system and the chemicals and additives in everything. I made our own baby food, laundry detergent, and even used cloth diapers, as I was taking small steps toward reducing chemicals in our food and home. After my son was born, I had crippling joint pain, so bad I could barely get up from a chair, and I was scared to carry my baby for fear I would fall down and hurt him. My doctor had no answers for me, so I did a deep dive into the internet to try to solve this mystery. It took a few weeks, but I kept seeing information about aspartame causing arthritis-like symptoms, and some articles actually said it could cause joint damage. Of course, this was all hidden in the deep archives of the internet. Even though I was working to remove chemicals from our food, I was still clinging to my long-standing Diet Coke addiction, and apparently, it caught up to me. I quit consuming NutraSweet of any kind, and my joint pain resolved in a few weeks. At that point, I started questioning everything that the FDA said was okay for us to eat. Since then, we've gradually added animals to our farm. First, we started with some laying hens. Not wanting to repeat my childhood chicken experience for my daughter, we calculated how many eggs we would need for our family each week, plus a few extra to sell. And then we looked at different breeds of chickens and how many eggs they lay, and we decided that we actually only needed 12 chickens to meet our egg needs. That was completely manageable for my 8-year-old daughter, and she could handle the chicken chores for that few number of birds all by herself. She sold eggs and saved enough money to buy her first hogs when she was 9 years old. She picked out 2 hogs, and she showed one in 4-H, and the other one we harvested for our own freezer. The next year, she wanted to add lambs to the mix in her 4-H animals, so she raised some lambs and the hogs, and sold her extra lambs to someone else for meat. When my son was old enough for 4-H, he chose to do goats, and that was the beginning of quite an adventure that's still going on today. We started raising goats for show, and then a year later, we expanded into a commercial meat goat herd, and we started with 40 head of goats. We now have over 100 meat goats. Of course, when you're raising meat goats and show goats, you're going to have bottle babies. So then you need dairy goats so that you can feed the bottle babies. We now have 5 dairy goats. Not only do they feed the bottle babies, but they provide milk for our family as well. Once the goat herd was well established and we felt like we had that under control, we added in meat birds and turkeys. And the last thing we've added is calves. Me being a beef girl, it's about time, is all I can say about that. So we did most of this on a couple of acres in town, and then we bought land and started over. We chose to be off-grid. We've been building most everything by ourselves. It's been quite an adventure, and I will be sharing more about that in the future. The longer we raise our own livestock, the more I question the conventional advice for the care, feeding, and management of animals. We're not afraid to try new things, and we're moving away from conventional advice and toward raising our animals as close to the way nature intended as possible. And it's working. There's magic in the system, how the animals complement each other, which results in greater production for the system as a whole. The purpose of this podcast is to help you successfully raise livestock for food and to give you the knowledge and skills to do it with confidence. I will share our strategies and systems, the mistakes we've made, and the things we've learned. There's a lot that goes into raising animals, and I aim to make it as simple as possible to get you started on the right foot. Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes. And meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.